Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to continue with part 3 of the Hive mining OS. But as always, before we begin, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel and also turn on post notifications so you can know wherever I upload a new video. So before we begin with today's video, today's part, if you haven't watched already part 1 and part 2, I invite you to do so, because in part 1 you will learn how you can install or flash, let's say, your Hive mining OS and set it up for the first time. And then on the second part, after you have installed and up and running with the Hive OS, I show you how you can add your wallets and your mining rigs to the Hive mining OS web page so you can begin mining. And after that we are all done and we are already mining. But obviously we don't need to do just that, but obviously we need to modify and to overclock our video cards so we can get the most out of them and mine at the highest possible hash rate, let's say. So the first thing to do, if you have completed the first two parts, you just go to the Hive OS web page, then go and sign in, obviously. And after you sign in, you will get to the main page where you can see your mining rig or your mining rigs if you have several of them. And the first thing we need to do to modify our mining rigs, after obviously we have set it to mine, then we can go to the rigs in here, click them, and go to the mining rig, or if you have many, to the one which you want to modify. Click on there and you will enter the mining rig page. Basically this means that in here we can change even the different things from our wallet we have already created first. We can do it right away from this page, but we won't do that. What we will focus today is the overclocking session, which is this session in here in purple, pink, I don't know, color, anyway. So as you can see, I have 3 video cards in here, graphic cards in here, RX 470s, and yeah, you can see basic stuff like the wattage, the energy that they consume, you can see the temperature, the fan speed, and so on. So this is fairly easy to do, the overclocking thing. You can even use different video cards, obviously the same brand like AMD, but you can use also AMD and Nvidia at the same time. So if you have an AMD and an Nvidia card on the same rig, you will get another place in here where you can overclock the Nvidia video cards. But since I don't have, so I have only AMD cards, I have only these options in here. So basically, to modify and overclock our video cards after we have already set them to mine, as I have already showed you in the part 1 and part 2. If you haven't already, just go there and watch them also. So you just click on AMD overclock in here and it opens up this window. Obviously, if you haven't applied an overclock in here, you will get nothing. I have these settings because I have already overclocked or underclocked, let's say, my video cards, or modified or tuned them to mine as stable as possible and at maximum speed. So basically the core clock is very simple. You need to set the core clock which you want to set your video cards, your graphic cards, and I suggest you use a speed from, if you have AMD cards, you can use a speed from 1000 megahertz to 1150 like I do, but 1100, it's a basic use which you can try with your video cards, and it's a fairly good clock for the core clock, because it doesn't consume too much power, and it also doesn't affect the hash rate too much, especially if you are mining or if you intend to mine Dagger Hashimoto coins or ETH coins like Ethereum, ETHClassic, and so on. I suggest you keep the core clock as low as possible, so you can keep your card cool, because it doesn't consume too much power, and also doesn't stress it too much. And so you can leave it from 1000 to 1150. It's a good betting, let's say. Since I have the temperatures under control, I set this to 1150, but if my temperatures go above 60, then I will get these down to maybe 1100 or maybe less, 1000 or 1050. But let's see. For now, I'm good with the temperatures. Then we go to the core state in here, which if you can open in this, the default value is 5. My video cards run just fine with the default value of 5. If you, for example, have some issues, let's say your mining rig isn't stable, then you can choose different core states from 1 to 7. But keep in mind that when you use 1, this means that you will stress less your video card, it will consume less power, but obviously if you overclock it too much, then you can get into stability issues. So you have to find which state works best for your video cards and for your overclock settings. Till now, my default value of 5 is working just fine. My video cards are stable. If you can see in here, my rig is running for 2 days and 22 hours, almost 3 days non-stop, with less than 60 degrees of temperature. So I'm very happy with that. And yeah, so you have to choose your own core state. One thing I suggest you to do is set your core clock, set the other parameters, set the core state to 5 as default, and then see if the rig is stable. Then if the rig is stable for a long time, at least for 24 hours, and you think that you can use a lower core state, then you can go ahead and try, for example, 4. Then you can save it and leave it for another at least 24 hours, and if it's stable, then you can try 3, 2, 1, and so on, till you find the best setting for your mining rig. Let's say for me, for now, 5 is good, but obviously later I will try other core states and see if I can manage to save a little bit on power consumption and also be stable at the same time. And then we go to the core voltage, which obviously you already know if you are in mining. But if you are using AMD video cards, I suggest you do not go under 950 millivolts, because it's too low. But if you intend not to overclock too much especially the core clock, then you can try even lower than 900. You can try 800 and see if it's stable. If it's not stable, then you can try 850, then 900, and so on. For me, the 950 is very stable for now, as you can see. So I'm using these settings for now, and I will leave it like this. But when I begin to play with the core state, then I can try different settings even with the core voltage. So there's nothing fixed in here. You have to try and see which works best for your mining rig. Then we go to the memory clock, where you can set your memory clock for your video cards. Now, obviously you know how to do this. You just set the core clock which you want your video cards to go, and you are all done. Now, why do you see three measurement or 3 settings, let's say, in here. And this is because in the Hive Mining OS, if you want to modify all your video cards that are on your mining rig the same way, the same core clock, the same core voltage and memory clock, you just have to set one value in here, like the core clock, for example. So if you set 1150, for example, like I did, then this means that all the video cards in your mining rig, even if you have 2 or 20 video cards, they will get a core clock speed of 1150. But if, for example, you have different kind of cards, let's say you have an RX 470, you have an RX 580, you have an RX Vega, you have an RX 560, then obviously these video cards may have different core clocks, memory clocks, and core voltage, and so on. So to be able to modify these video cards separately, it's very easy. You just go to the setting which you want to set up, and you set, like, for example, 2100 megahertz on the memory clock, and then you just hit space. And when you hit space, this means that this value 2100 is for the GPU 0, and when you hit space, you can see in here that it pops up GPU 1, which means that now we can set the core the memory clock for GPU 1, and I want my GPU 1 to run at 2100 also. Then I hit space, and as you can see in here, GPU 2. Now we can set the memory clock for GPU 2. And I know that my GPU 2 or my third video card doesn't run much higher than 1800, because it will become unstable. So I have to do this manually to set it to 1800, so I can fully crank my two first video cards, which can run to 2100, and then the third one to 1800. And then if you have other video cards, you just hit space and go for GPU 3 and so on. But keep in mind that you need to know which GPU corresponds to the GPU 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on, so you can know which GPU you need to set the core clock right, or the memory core clock right, and so on. So basically this means that this value can be set in every category in here. For example, if I like to set my GPU 0 to 1150, I just did that, then hit space, and then I want my second GPU to run at 1100, let's say, then hit space, my third GPU to 1200 and so on. But as I want them to be the same and the rig is stable, I can set it this way. So this is kind of easy way and kind of cool way to try and set out different video cards with different settings. And this is a useful thing if your mining rig is not stable. So you can set a lower clock for GPU 2, for example, and a higher clock for the other GPUs, and so you can get your mining rig to be stable. Also with core state is the same, just space, and you can set the core state for the next GPU and so on. Also with the core voltage, just space, and then you can set a core voltage for each video cards if you want them to be different. If you want them to be the same, then you just set one value in there, and this value will apply to all GPUs. Okay, then we go to memory state. It's just a little bit like core state. You can leave it blank if you want to stay on default. I don't want to play with this setting because it depends on the video card, but if your mining rig isn't stable, then you can try different settings in here. You can click on this button in here, and you can see what settings you can get for your video card. But I suggest to leave it this way. especially if your mining rig is stable with the settings you have set above. And then in the fan speed, if you can see in here, I have set 60% fan speed for the first GPU 0, then space, then 70 for the second GPU, because the GPU that's in the middle, so between the other two video cards, gets too hot, so I have to set a higher fan speed. So I have set it to 70, then the next one to 60, and it's all done. You can set whatever speed you want. If you like to keep that automatic, you can leave it blank in here, but I suggest you set your own fan speed, because with the automatic fan curve, your video cards may get too hot and you can risk damage and yeah, break your video cards earlier, let's say. Aggressive undervolting, I don't suggest you play with these settings, only if you are an expert with the Hive mining OS and you want to go even further with your overclock settings. And you are all done in here. Obviously you can watch a tutorial in here how you can do that if you like to watch another one, other user settings if you like to, and obviously the information you can find for this. But I think I covered this up by telling you one by one what these settings can do, and obviously you can save these settings and load them up later, so you can use them on different rigs if you have different rigs with the same video cards and which you want to use the same settings, let's say. And then you just hit apply and you are all done. Then the miner will restart automatically, but if it doesn't, you can do so, and you will see your settings getting applied, like you can see in here. I have done some change in settings in here, like let's say on 5th of July. So yeah, that's the last settings. And in here, as you can see, GPU 0, 55 degrees, 60% fan, running at 30.3 mega hashes. The second GPU, as I told you, is a little bit hotter because it's in the middle. 57 degrees at 68% fan speed, 29.4 mega hashes. And the last one, it's at 25.9 mega hashes, and as I told you, I can run the memory speed only on 1800. I cannot go any higher, but I will try different settings if I can go any more than that. So yeah, that's why you see 26 mega hashes in here and not 30 mega hashes like the other one, because the memory speed of this video card runs 300 megahertz slower than the other ones. And yeah, that's it for the overclocking. I think this is fairly easy. And another thing I want to point out, if you want to set your own fan speed, just don't forget to watch the part 1 and part 2 where I explained that. And the basic thing is that you need to go to your wallets and in the wallet, when you create it, or if you haven't already created, you click on edit, and you don't forget to use on claim or config override -TT1, because if you don't set this parameter in here, that you cannot control the fan speed on the rig in here, as you can see, because if you haven't that parameter in here on your wallet -TT1, then you cannot set your fan speed, because the fan speed will be controlled by the Claymore miner, so it will be automatic and your video cards will get too hot. So for you to be able to control your fan speed, to set a certain or a fixed fan speed, Don't forget, on your wallet you create, go to edit or your new wallet when you create it, and on the claim or config override you just set this parameter -TT1, and you are all done. Then you can set your own fan speed. And yeah, that's it for today, guys. I hope this was clear. I think so, because it's not very difficult to do this. Yeah, if you have any questions, obviously you can ask on the comment section, and I will try my best to help you out to get your perfect settings with your Hive mining OS and with the rigs that you have connected to, or which you use with this mining OS. Okay, before we go, as always, don't forget to subscribe, guys. Like and share the videos. It would help me very much, and I will very much appreciate it. And yeah, see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.